This is a quick warm-up that I do before I start my run. Start with your arms overhead in mountain pose. And gaze up at your fingertips. And breathe. Inhale and stretch over to the left side. And kind of gaze upward. And come back to center. And then immediately go over to the right side. I'm really contracting my right side body so that it's crunching in and lengthening through the left side of my body. And then back to center. Forward fold. And bring your hands to your mat or to the ground. Usually when I'm doing this on concrete, I'm tenting my fingers so I don't get dirty, but using my mat, so I'm just gonna bring my hands in and draw your navel into your spine and fold deeply. You can also pedal out your legs here. It's always a nice feeling when you're in a contracted pose. So warm them up. And then lift up. And cross your right foot over your left foot, and forward fold again. I'm gonna fold over. You wanna take this a little bit deeper. You can reverse the tent of your fingers and press into your thumb. And then lift up, and we're gonna switch the cross. So now it's the left over the right. And here, I'm really pressing both of my legs into one another. So kind of alternating almost. And depending on how I'm feeling in my hips, I'll also kind of wiggle my hips around. And then we're gonna come out of that. Now, the next stage, this is where we get very un-yoga with it. So I like to work through every single joint, especially on my lower body, before the run. So I usually do this with my shoes on, but it's totally fine. I'm gonna do some ankle circles. And the cool thing about these ankle circles is that it's also targeting my toes and the balls of my feet. So I'm kind of articulating through my toes, through my ankles, and just working it around in one direction and then the other direction. I usually do give or take 7 to 8 rotations on either side, okay? I'm putting a little bit of weight, not my full body weight, but a little bit of weight into it so that everything's kind of lubricating. Okay, good. Now for the knees. The knees is a weird one. They don't exactly roll the way that the ankle rolls. But this is really, really good stretch before you run to make sure that those knees are nice and juiced up. And what I'm thinking, and this is proven, I didn't make all this stuff up, is that as we run, sometimes we're encountering obstacles. So maybe you've run over a pebble or an uneven sidewalk or whatever, some type of obstacle that you're running over. And you might actually make this movement with your knee or with your leg. And just the fact that you've already warmed it up and gotten it ready is a great thing, okay? Next, it's the hips. So this one's a little odd. I'm gonna have my left foot straight, my right foot out, and I'm thrusting into my hip. So not very hard, not hard at all, but just wiggling into this hip crease, into this psoas muscle. This is a really important muscle, and I really want to loosen up and warm up my groin area. If you think about running with this motion all the time, it definitely needs a little bit of a warm up. And then I switch sides and it's the same thing. It's kind of, think of Elvis or I don't know, somebody cooler than Elvis. I don't like Elvis that much, but you know, whatever floats your boat. All the single ladies, all this, I don't know, something keep you going into that crib. Listen, I've had moments where I'm doing this and I feel a big old pop and ouch, but I'd rather do it while I'm on purpose trying to warm up rather than have it happen while I'm running, okay? Now, for the knees, again, Okay, so now I'm gonna draw some circles around my feet. I'm just kind of pressing into my feet and rotating my knees around the area that I'm standing in. And again, both directions. Feels kind of awkward. And then the hips. Yes, almost like hula hooping. One direction and then the other. And I'm also activating a lot of the muscles in my feet. So I don't know if you can see, but the way that I'm rotating and rolling around the corners of my feet is kind of warming up all of everything in my feet so I can make sure I have a good run. I'm ready. I would run now if I could. But right now, I'm taking a break. So I'm gonna jump and show you immediately what I do after the run, okay? So other than panting my brains out and sweating like a banshee, this is how I start, okay? So I start off with a couple of the poses that we started off this one with. One of them is definitely arms up overhead. And the difference, I would say the big difference between before run and after run is the length of time that I hold everything. So after run, I'm holding everything for about 5 breaths, maybe longer, especially when I get into those pigeon poses. I'm doing those for a lot longer, maybe 10. So I'm gonna start in with my forward folds. I'm just pressing into the ball of my foot and alternating. You can see I have a much wider stance than I did earlier with my forward fold. And then just come to a static hold. You can even play with pressing into your hands. You can come back up, crossing those foot right over left. Oh, now after a run, this feels so good, so juicy in the body. Those hamstrings are awake. There is no pain, no stretching, no tightness in there at all. And then we're gonna cross. And the other thing, after a run, like the holds are longer and you kind of want them to be longer. It feels like all the movement that you did in the run, this feels like a treat. In fact, I'm kind of using my muscle memory. I started this sequence with a little bit of knowledge from my original run coach and intuition, certain things that I thought would be really good to throw in there. So he did this practice that was called runner's yoga, and I'm not sure, well, he called it that. I'm not sure where he got the sequence from, but it was one of those sequences that really spoke to me. So here we are with a lunge. I love a rotating lizard. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm creating like momentum in my lunge by rolling my pelvis in a circle, in a circular motion with that lunge before I sink into my knee. And with people with sensitive knees and lunges, especially lunges with the knee on the ground, I want you to aim, instead of just crashing down on the front part of your knee. I have knobbly knees, so I have really sensitive knees too. I want you to think of putting the top part of your knee on there and see if that helps to release some of the tension in your knee when you're in lizard lunge or lunges like this. So here I am in my lizard lunge, and I'm also rocking side to side, just kind of feeling into the groin area, feeling into my psoas muscle, stretching everything out. Generally, I would be much warmer. Then I take my left hand and press into the left knee and straighten and pull my back body out. So I'm really like resisting against my leg. And that's just deepening the stretch. And I'll hold that for a few moments. And then bring it back in. And then I start with runner's lunge. So I'm gonna press my hips back and bring flex the top part of my feet. So I'm flexing my toes towards my head. I like to even give it a hand. So I usually just like place my hand over the sole and kind of stretch back and lean back into the stretch. It's a really good hamstring stretch. If you want to make sure that you activate all areas of your hamstring, you can lift up your hip. So whichever foot you're flexing on, you have like right now I'm doing the left, so I'm lifting up my left foot and then I'm bringing it back, lifting up my left hip and then bringing it back down. And what that does is it just kind of targets all three of the main hamstrings in my leg. So I'm kind of activating, going like from the edges to the center to the inner part of the hamstring. And then walk your hands over to the outside of that leg. Keep your toes flexed. And then walk your hands over to the other side. And this one, I'm pressing in with my left elbow. So I'm pressing my left elbow towards the mat. This is really targeting that inner hamstring. And then I walk back up to center, and then I come into my low lizard lunge. And everything's all nice and warm, so it's pretty simple, pretty easy to come all the way down. If you're not, if you don't have this much range of motion, you can also use a block underneath your elbows and forearms. We're gonna pop back up and heel toe this left leg over to the right hand. And I like to use it as information of where I'm aiming for this pigeon. So we're gonna jump into our pigeon pose, We're gonna ease into our pigeon pose, but this is the information that I'm giving myself. So I am trying to aim, this is not a very comfortable, I'm not comfortable in pigeon yet with a full like 90-degree angle pigeon, and you don't ever have to get there, but I always like to start with where I want it and activate this foot. Okay, so you see mine's coming in at an angle, and that's completely fine. And I'm gonna lean over. The main thing you wanna focus on in pigeon is squaring the hips. So you don't need to force yourself into any position with this. Just let gravity kind of take you where it needs to be, and you can go as deep as you want. So for me to really activate my pigeon, you can see that I've lifted my back knee off of the mat, so I'm not leaning on that back leg. And what that does is that gives me a little bit more of a growing edge, like I can really lean back into the top of the foot with my hip. You can create a little pillow for yourself and rest into the pose. And then walk yourself back up, and this one is also one of my favorites. And come back up, and I'm on my tiptoe on my back leg, and I'm just kind of rocking myself back into it. You can do this before or after. I usually do it a little bit before, because this is a little bit more cringy for me. Okay, bring your hands back down to your mat. Bring that left leg to meet the right. Got a little plant on my mat. I'm gonna squish that off. And now I'm back in my down dog. Actually, not back. This is my first down dog. I'm in my down dog position. And I'm gonna take this right leg, bring it to meet my right hand. And again, start this sequence all over again. So now I am doing my lizard circles where I'm rotating my pelvis over the ground and just kind of hitting every angle. Ooh, almost slid off my mat. Hitting every angle within my pelvic structure. Also really good pelvic floor exercise, okay? And then drop that knee back in there. Again, remember, try to aim or angle for the top part of the knee. Take your right hand to your right knee or to your right thigh, really, not necessarily your knee. And see if you can straighten your arm. It's okay if your heels or your feet go off the mat. That's kind of what we want. And arch back. And bring it back into center. Go. And then, yes, we're coming into our runner's lunge. Like, this is optional. You can do it just like this. Maybe I did it on the other side, so I can show you on this one without holding. I like the hold. The hold gives me a little bit more leverage to work into my hamstrings, but you can totally do this without the hold. Again, if you want to get into all those different areas of your hamstring, you can lift your right hip and then just bring it down. Open the hip and close the hip. What it's doing is getting all these little areas, as long as you keep your foot flexed. I like giving it a hand, as you know. Okay, walk your hands over to the right side, lean in. And then walk your hands over to the left and press into that right elbow. And I don't know why, but pressing into this right elbow really, really stretches out that hammy. Good. And then we're coming right back into our lizard lunge on our forearms. So this is our low lizard lunge. And again, just rocking back and forth, allowing the hips to open. If you just finished running and you're doing this, you should be nice and open. And whatever your range is, whatever your range of motion is, you can always grab a block or a bolster to get through this. If you're out on the road, get a backpack. There's always something around you can use. Good. Now come back up on your palms, and we're gonna heel toe that right foot all the way across the mat. Again, giving my body information before I come into my pigeon pose. There we go. And just lean into it, square off the hips. If you want to play around with working your way down into it, it's a really challenging pose for me and never comfortable in it. It's something that I work on. And then stack your forearms and use it as a little pillow. And try to find rest and breathe through it. We're almost there. Walk your hands up and behind your legs. And we're gonna pop up onto that back toes. Yep, and start to rock into the pigeon pose. Okay, now come all the way onto your buttocks, onto your bottom, and we're gonna work in log cabin. Log cabin is essentially double pigeon, right? So you're taking your foot, angling, I like to angle my ankle towards the center of my calf, and place your hands or your arms over the edges of your leg, over your top leg, and just start to rock into it. I like the information of rocking in and just letting my fingers touch very gently, left, and then we'll switch over to the right in a moment. Good, now we're gonna switch. You'll also become very aware of which side you have more flexibility in. For me, it is definitely my right side, which is my dominant side. Just a wee bit more range of motion than my left. Okay, now for the fun party. I don't know if this is the party, but this is also one of my very deep quad stretches that I have a love slash. Oh, there's a squirrel. Are you gonna come in the video? There's a really chunky squirrel coming into this video right now. Hi, buddy. I don't have food, Chubby. Okay, so now finally we're gonna get into one of my favorite poses. This is, if I had to select 3 poses out of this sequence, and you may be in a situation one day where you only have time for 3 poses, or you only have maybe you're rushing or the space isn't right. The 3 things that I would do are the cross-legged forward fold, for sure. I love that pose. It hits all the muscles that you are working when you're running. Pigeon, as challenging as it is, it's not my fave, but definitely pigeon pose. And finally, this last one, which is a half heroes pose, okay? Runner's lunge too. I like all the poses in here make me feel like $1 million, but this one, definitely, okay? This is working an area that's hard to work, all right? So you're gonna come into a half hero pose. That's just your shin facing down towards your mat, toes extended behind you, heels up, and just come on to rest on your elbows. So you're just resting on your elbows, and once you feel like, if you can go deeper, if you feel good and you want to go deeper, you just start to work your way down, bring your shoulder blades into the mat, and just rest into this. And take your cycles of breath and breathe, and you can be in here however long it feels good to you. I wouldn't overdo it, but 10 breaths is good. And then we can go and take the same pose on the other side. Like just start with legs straight, Dandasana, and then really just work in there, go quickly into it. And that's it. That's what I do pre-run, post-run. If there's anything that you guys do that is really good, if you're training for a marathon or if you're a runner, that I didn't include, please share it with me in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback. And I'd also love for you to like this video if this is something that's helpful for you. I'm gonna be making a lot more mobility videos, so if this one is valuable to you, go ahead and like it. And if you really like it, go ahead and click subscribe. I'd love to see you here. Take care.